Hello out there, guys. How are all of you doing? Welcome back, as always, to Rule of Two Review. So there's no doubt that any of you who follow me on Twitter are probably laughing when seeing this video, because if you were paying attention to some of my tweets earlier today, I posted a poll on Twitter asking you guys how much you prefer the face cam and video footage of myself talking to you in my videos, as opposed to just a standard gameplay video with my commentary over it. And the overwhelming majority of my pretty small poll, probably about 100 or so votes, said that you guys prefer the face cam and you prefer to see my lovely bearded face. And yet here I am with the first video making after that poll, and it's gameplay and my commentary over it. So I know it's kind of ridiculous, and make no mistake, I paid attention to that. I appreciate you guys prefer the face cam stuff, and to be fair, that is most of my videos. But today it just kind of worked out nice and easy. Just turn on the audio equipment, hit record, do my thing, and next time I'll get back on camera. So as promised for this month, the E3 conversation is continuing because, of course, we're on that final countdown to E3. It's only a couple of weeks away. It is literally next month, June 2017, which is crazy, crazy exciting. What I wanted to do is discuss a sort of retread of a conversation that a lot of people have every year, myself included, but I want to take it in a slightly different, more focused direction. We need to talk about E3 as a whole, the convention and the event for the industry that happens every year, and if it's still important specifically to our favorite company, Nintendo. Now, to be fair, there is a larger conversation you could have about E3 as far as how important or relevant it still is to all companies involved and to the industry as a whole, like I was saying a minute ago. And the thing is, I've done that every year since starting the channel, and a lot of people talk about that every year. I do think it's still an important conversation to have, but specifically right now, because of the unique position Nintendo is in, I thought it would be more fun and interesting to discuss specifically Nintendo's position when it comes to E3 for the long term. And of course, I am mostly a Nintendo-focused channel. As much as I love to talk about everything, and I do own and play all the consoles and PC, it's definitely Nintendo that keeps us all the most invested, and that's what you guys are used to hearing me talk about on the channel. So Nintendo is the one that really has the most unique vibe when it comes to E3, especially the last handful of years. We know this will be the 5th year in a row that they are attending E3 and they are bringing content and games to E3, but they're not doing that live press conference, which has now become kind of just, you know, the play it by numbers normal thing standard for Nintendo, which we're all pretty happy with. Yes, I talk about how much I miss the days of Nintendo on stage, and that is still true, but I do love the digital events and the Nintendo Directs and the Treehouse when it accompanies other stuff, so I'm still happy to see what they're going to do. But E3 as it exists is a pretty unique beast within the industry. There are a couple of conventions that were used to happening throughout the year, and every once in a while, one of the manufacturers has a reason to even address us outside of those conventions. But still, E3 is considered that ultimate hype week of the year. It is that period when we are still used to and accustomed to the biggest announcements, the biggest previews, the biggest surprise and reveals, the biggest pieces of news and interviews, and all of our favorite things to find out about brand new games and gaming companies and consoles. It always comes from that E3 week. And I've been gaming for 30 years. I've been not alive for 30 years, mind you, gaming for 30 years. And I've been following E3 since it really became, you know, more relevant in today's culture, which would have been around the turn of the millennium, probably. Sometime around that time, maybe in a couple years after. The Wind Waker thing happened at CES 2001 or 2000, probably 2001. So yeah, probably around 2003 or 4, I guess. Might be around the time I was really starting to follow it super seriously. So that's a long time, and we're all used to seeing certain things happen throughout E3. Nintendo changing the game the last couple of years has been, for some people, wind out of their sails, but for most of us, just an interesting thing to see. Now, Nintendo did, as we all know, just released their brand new console. The Switch is amazing. I always bring that up. Everyone is loving it and it's selling like crazy. It's a very hot commodity in the industry right now and for Nintendo. And of course, Nintendo is in an even more unique scenario because despite being one of, if not the most successful company in the video game industry, they also are coming off of, unfortunately, a pretty big failure. I love my Wii U. I thought it was great the entire time it was their current console in the market. But there is no doubt it wasn't the sales hit that they expected, or that investors expected, or the industry, or gamers and Nintendo fans. It wasn't a hit. And they didn't overall lose money. They got back in the green the last year or two, but that was mostly due to the 3DS and a couple of key software titles on the Wii U, not the console itself. So Nintendo, having to come back with a new console, had to do something very specific, very confident, very powerful. And so far, it seems like the Switch is it, man. And they even released it in a very unconventional time of the year, March, the end of the first quarter of the year. We haven't seen something like that in a very, very long time. I think the Saturn in 1990, whatever, 5 or 6 probably was released, I think like in May or June or something. And since then, it's been November for home console launches, not handhelds, but home consoles. And so with E3, we've all talked about this, myself included, E3 is so conveniently positioned just a handful of months after the Switch has launched, so Nintendo has a real chance to capitalize on that. The whole industry is paying attention, the whole industry is watching what's going to happen. Nintendo will have a lot of eyes on them. They haven't yet confirmed if they're doing a digital event, but they did confirm no press conference. I expect a digital event in Treehouse just like normal, and they have an opportunity to totally blow us away with their first post-Switch E3 digital event. And so through all of this information and all of these events, that's the real question and the real crux of this video and my sort of thoughts about this topic. Does this mean that E3 is still important to Nintendo? Nintendo's slowly taking steps to get further and further away from feeling really involved with E3, especially last year. Yes, it was a unique case, but regardless of the unique case, it still was something where they only brought one main game, a couple of other small games, and just spent time live streaming that one game from the Treehouse. That was a pretty big departure from what any major company and console player has ever done at the biggest event of the year, E3. And so it's been seeming like Nintendo might be slowly viewing E3 in a less positive light as the years go on. And we all know that part of the reason they even do Nintendo Directs is because they want to bypass a lot of the media bias and the industry BS and just get right to us, right to the gamer, right to the Nintendo fan. And that's great. That's one of their best qualities and my favorite things that they do. And I'm sure for a lot of you guys, it's one of your favorite things that Nintendo does. And so when we look at E3 and we look at Nintendo and we look at the post-Switch Nintendo and this post-Switch E3, there's no doubt that this E3, yes, is extremely important to Nintendo still. And some people may agree Nintendo fans can really pick very extreme sides and draw very deep lines in the sands when it comes to certain things like this. I don't know why that's more prevalent with Nintendo fans than other guys, but just is what it is. For me, I will tell you that, yeah, I definitely think that this E3 happens to be very important. And some of you may disagree, man, but I just think you might be looking at it the wrong way. As of right now, 2017, this is the moment, like I was saying a couple of minutes ago, that Nintendo can capitalize to just get some of their biggest and best surprises and their best games that we don't yet know about. Maybe some real proof positive of enhanced and strong third-party support and third-party library games. They can show the world that, not just a Nintendo fan, like what Nintendo Directs typically do. I guarantee the majority of the Nintendo Direct market every time a Direct happens is probably between 80 and even as high as 95% dedicated Nintendo fans already. And that's great, but it doesn't attract necessarily a lot of new gamers, and E3 is that time to do so. With their brand new console a hit, and they want to keep that momentum, they want to show us that the drought and the slow period that plagued the Wii U is not going to happen this time around. I believe it won't happen, but I also believe that E3 has got to be the time that Nintendo knows they can show the world that it's not going to happen so that we can all confidently believe that. Now, is there an argument to say that for the long term after this year that E3 might be less and less important to Nintendo? Yes, there is a conversation there. I think that there is at least an argument to be had when we start to think of years down the road if Nintendo really can successfully further separate themselves from this side of the media within the gaming industry and further separate themselves from E3 and what's required there and how much money it costs and what people want to see out of it. They truly might become that much more, if not entirely independent from these kinds of things. And I don't ultimately want that, and I also don't ultimately think that would be smart, you guys. I know a lot of you guys who are big Nintendo fans, you're going to be like, yes, that's great, that's the way it should be, that would be so great. And it would be great to a degree. I love the idea of that independent Nintendo, but I think that what would start to happen there is they kind of forget that they would potentially forget that they really are a true key player in this same industry, right along Sony, right along Microsoft for however much longer they might exist as a gaming and console manufacturer, and right along everyone else, all of these companies within the industry. I mean, to a degree, being independent in this way is very smart and great for a company. But at the same time, you kind of need to be involved. You need to be a team player. You need to be a part of the game you know, the game in a non-superfluous way, as in like the game of the industry, not a video game. I think that that's a very important thing to do. You don't want to alienate yourself too much. At some point, you need to work with other companies need to work with you. You need to seem involved. So you can go so far away from these kinds of big gala events and these things that keep the industry together and keep your peers together, but you don't want to go too far. You have to remember, you guys, Nintendo is a peer with Sony and Microsoft and these other companies within the industry, and they are peers with Nintendo and vice versa and all around. And in fact, I mean, if you have a mature enough perspective, you're probably smart enough to understand that all of these people who run these different companies are also friends. They're business compadres. They don't work for the same company, and they don't make the same business decisions, of course. But they have respect for each other, and I guarantee you that that's how they look at each other, and they're all just part of the same big game, playing the same thing, trying to split all of this money that's available to everyone who takes part in creating products for the gamer and within the industry. And so they need to kind of keep some of those business relations going. I mean, you never know what's going to happen down the road. What if someone needs to step out, but people need to join forces? And what if Nintendo needs to start sharing money and business-related decisions with Sony in like 12 years? You don't want to just start drawing lines in the sand and burning bridges. And it's just a very interesting way to look at it, I think, and I think it's something that shouldn't be forgotten. Anyway, all of that stuff is kind of straying to the main point. So in wrapping up, I think that overall, yes, E3 right now this year matters to Nintendo very much so because of the Switch and the momentum they need to show us they're going to have for the console. And I think that for the next couple of years, I mean literally 4 to 5 or 6 years, it will still be pretty important. Nintendo can't totally walk away from it. But long term, even with all the stuff I talked about with them needing to stay, you know, important to their peers and whatnot, yeah, Nintendo could still step away. They could still survive without being involved with the biggest gala event in the industry every year, and without having that kind of level playing field with some of their peers in the industry. Yeah, they could do it, and there are benefits to becoming that independent. But I really think that ultimately, you guys, Nintendo will never truly step away from the industry and from E3. But you never really know, and as I like to say, Nintendo is one of, if not the hardest company to predict. So, really, really interesting to see it all play out. I thought it was a lot of fun to talk about this. I really enjoyed talking about this topic with you guys. What's going to happen with Nintendo and E3 long term? This year, I think we're going to see a really strong presence, and it's only going to prove beneficial to them because, hey, the whole world and the whole industry does watch E3. Even if Nintendo wants to start bypassing that stuff and bypassing the media, still they get a lot of eyes on them at E3, and I hope that they don't forget that in the coming years. So that's what I think about this whole thing. Talk to me, you guys, about Nintendo at E3, the relevance between the two, the relevance of E3 within the whole industry. I might discuss that in another week or two as well. And yeah, share your thoughts about all this stuff below. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you guys next time on another video.